which everything's actually working. I think we're good to go, man. So I will start it up. Hello, everybody watching. Welcome to the PiG Daily, episode number 95. Today we have a special guest. It is Snute, and he's going to talk to us about his Blizzcon games. How are you going, Snute?
I'm doing pretty fine. Just practiced a little bit, and it's good to take things a little bit easy in December. Things were very busy around BlizzCon time, so I'm kind of happy that it's all over, and I'm just practicing a little bit, trying to stay in shape, stuff like that. So I'm doing pretty fine, I would say.
The mythical pro gamer off season is finally in full flourish, which
Yeah, feels so good, man. Feels good.
yeah, year of training and travel. It's got to be worth it. So let's dive straight on into game. And when I say one, let's hit play. So 3, 2, 1, play. All right. Awesome. So this is going to be your games versus stats, of course. For anyone new to the show, we are just kind of look through the games, enjoy kind of looking at what's happening. I'm going to ask questions. Snoot's going to talk us through his thought process. And we've got a whole bunch of questions from Reddit. We've also got you guys in Twitch chat are able to ask any questions you want. Just use that at x5_pig tag so it highlights for me. So it's easy for me to see which ones are questions. And you guys can shout out any questions you want. And we'll basically just talk about StarCraft. If we have time, we will try and also watch another macro game other than this one here on Apotheiosis. We'll also try and watch Game 3 on Gettysburg, as they were both pretty back and forth matches. So, all right, Snute, Apotheiosis, Game 1, round of 16 of BlizzCon. Obviously, this is such a big tournament. This was your first time at BlizzCon. Were you pretty nervous going into this match?
I'm not sure if I was nervous or not. I felt pretty prepared, and I knew roughly what I was gonna do in every single map. So I went into this with a plan, but obviously, it's BlizzCon, so I was maybe a little bit nervous, but I don't think it affected me that much. At least not when I played my first match against Stats. So I think I was able to just stick to the plan, and it didn't really affect me that much to begin with. So in the opening here, I was just doing everything without really being nervous. I didn't deviate from what I had planned or practiced. So
Nice.
it was a bit of an early match, though. It was a morning match, which is kind of uncomfortable for me. I tried to wake up as early as possible just to not be sleepy or anything. But it was still a little bit rough to begin the match as early as we did over there.
It was horrible, man. I literally couldn't watch it. Blame those Heroes of the Storm guys. They were stealing the afternoon slots. It was like every day I'd be like, oh, I can watch. If only I'm awake at 3 to 5 a.m. I can I can watch the first matches. But yeah, I mean, this was a pretty decent map. I imagine this was your first map pick, right?
I think actually this was maybe I don't remember that, to be honest. I think it was Stats' pick, which really confused me. I almost expected a little bit of cheese. I think it was his pick, to be honest.
Whoa. That's some
Anyway,
ballsy
I don't
Kratos
really
play
remember
there.
it, but I remember being surprised by Stats not vetoing this map, because it's such a Zerg favored map in my opinion. It's just strong for Zerg in so many ways, with the gold base, with the long rush distance. So I was very surprised when this map was not vetoed, and I expected a little bit of cheese in the opening, to be honest. And that's why I also opened very safely. But it just turned out to be a very greedy gold base opening. So that made me feel very comfortable. I still scouted a little bit for hidden probes, as we can see on the minimap right now. But then I see the Stargate in the wall off, and I know that from there it's just a completely standard nexus into Stargate. And I don't see, there's no natural base taken except for the gold, right? But that usually follows. So I felt very confident to just drone up right now.
Awesome. That's actually really interesting. And I mean, you said you opened really safe. And I mean, I guess Hatchgas Pool is just the kind of cookie cutter standard type of play right now. Do you feel like 3 hatch before pool is something you ever have kind of bringing back into the meta recently? Or is it still pretty much all just kind of variations of kind of speeding up the 3rd hatchery before the queens come out?
I mean, it is possible to use it on Apotheosis, but in general, I find Hatchgas Pool to be a little bit more convenient because you have a few more options. And in case something weird is happening, especially on Apotheosis, if there's a proxy gate, then if you go triple hatch before pool, then you just lose. So I think Hatchgas Pool is just the most all-round and safe opening. And you know, since it's Apotheiosis, I might as well be a little bit more conservative in the opening because I feel like the map is that great for me, so I didn't really have to take any special chances or gamble on Triple H before pool, and the advantage that you get from that opening is not really that great. So,
So you
now
don't.
I'm just
Sorry, I was just gonna
yeah,
say
sorry.
you don't feel too much pressure from the gold base.
No, not really, because I'm gonna get my own gold base, and as long as I can scout, I saw the Stargate and everything, so I know that I can make so many drones right now, and after that I would be very comfortable. Because I'm at this stage at BlizzCon, I was very confident playing long games, especially on Apotheosis, so I knew exactly how to play this out. Just get my chamber, get the +1 melee, try to keep a little bit tabs on what he's doing, and then just keep droning up and droning up and droning up, you know? Just like I did over in Mexico, just making tons and tons of drones, and then hitting Bane time.
The hard counter to Phoenixes, as we saw there, man. I loved that play you did at Mexico.
Yeah, and right now, I didn't see any more Phoenixes. I didn't see that many Stargate units. There was an Oracle, and now I see the Void Ray. So I know that there is a possibility for some ground-based aggression to come. And then I just saw the triple sentry right now in the bottom. So I know that I can stay safe even longer. Like, there was no such thing as mass adepts or something, but I just let my Roach Warren complete anyway. And just for safety, just in case something is gonna hit later on. But my drone count is pretty absurd right now. It's like closer to 70.
Oh.
So yes, so everything's going really well right now. I know that I don't need to be worried for a while, and as soon as my layer is about to complete, I can just put down my Spire to deal with the Warp Prison, and this is all just very standard. So I feel like both of us are kind of playing the Sims mode, but there were also a lot of details in my scouting. Like, I tried to poke the front with Zerglings, I saw the triple sentry, I saw the Void Ray, I saw the Oracle, and I actually adjusted the timing of my tech buildings from there, even if I was droning.
That's
now
actually
I'm taking a little bit of damage to my fourth, actually, but that's not a big deal. Just keep on developing the tech.
And that's actually like the real art here, right? Is such a focus on economy. Now, what's interesting is a lot of the time with this mass drone style, you started showing it in Mexico, there's not a big focus on creep. Like, your creep goes down pretty late. Like, it seems like your initial priority is basically just injects and drones and like that one single tumor connecting your bases. Do you think it's just not that important because you're going to be aggressive anyway? Or what's the deal? Why don't you focus on creep very much with this style?
Maybe it's possible. Usually, it's one of my weaker points as a player. I think my queen management is a little bit off, and I'm pretty sure it's possible to squeeze in a little bit of creep here and there. But the very most important thing is to just focus on droning as much as you possibly can. And sometimes that leads to missing a few creep tumors here and there. But I would say getting creep out, especially on a map like Apotheosis, is not that big of a deal. And because I didn't see any Phoenix now, I actually make the 7 Muta hit squad. This is very important because I just had the Warp Prism fly into my base, and I want a very reliable way to get that Warp Prism off the field. And 7 Mutas, or anywhere between 5 and 7 Mutas, is a very safe way to be able to fend off the Warp Prism, and also later put some pressure on the probes, because if you have at least 5 Muta, then you can one-shot probes, and that's very effective. So right now I'm just trying to secure map control, and just wait for my +2 melee to finish up, and that's when truly Zerg shines in these large map situations. And that's still true in the newest patch as well. As when you get +2 melee on your links, they just become so effective.
Little machine gun claws. Yeah, they just get out of control. So that +2 seems to be a really big point where you love to swap from that defensive mode into that aggressive mode. And you're also making ravages with this as well. So how about we just pause here for just a moment? And actually, no, let's just keep playing. Sorry, just keep playing. We'll go back and answer some questions.
Right now.
That's cool. Yeah, we'll just stay on 8 minutes. Just keep playing. So that's cool. Just keep talking through. I was thinking like, oh, there's a few questions about the stuff that you were just talking, but we can go back and answer those in a little bit. So with the mutas, they really are just to force a big reaction and shut down the Warp Prism, right? Do you ever find yourself committing to it?
Out.
Sorry, what was that?
Sometimes you can also force Phoenix out, which are not that great against Ling and Baneling, so that's another thing you can do with the mutas.
Yeah, just kind of forcing out useless units, making them uncomfortable, and I guess your whole aim here with this style is to stop that 4th base, right? Like, you really don't want to let him just sit on that 4th base and get up a huge army, right?
It's definitely the best time to attack, for sure. You don't want to let them have the 4th base, but what is even more important, I think, is actually destroying the army. If you can destroy the army, then they don't really have that much of a chance to stay in the game. Killing the base is a nice plus, but definitely killing off the army is the most important thing. So you just wanna poke and see what you can find, and then you take whatever seems like the best trade.
Okay, that's awesome.
So-
And I guess
so
the
I
fourth
try to,
base
like-
spreads them out a bit more, right? So it just gives you more angles to come from. We see you here, you start to rotate and come in from multiple sides, so we can't just pick that one engagement where the storm's going to hit all the banelings.
Exactly. It's a very mobile style, and that's also why Apotheiosis was such a great map for it. This would be a little bit more difficult on other maps, such as Echo, for example, in the new map pool. But yeah, you definitely want to pull them apart, especially when they're playing Storm, because that's a big weakness.
Yeah. And those storms, right? If that army gets like 6-7 Archons in front of a whole bunch of High Templar with Storm, they're defending one angle, you're never going to break it with this army, right? Your trades are going to be horrendous. But up until that point, which is such a gas-heavy army, you come in from multiple angles. If you can, get on top of the High Templar, your units are spread out so the storms aren't good. You actually take these pretty damn good trades, right? And then the moment there's any clumped up units, your Banelings seem to get just such fantastic value.
Mm-hmm. If you can sandwich with Banelings, then that's amazing. It's it's really crazy how quickly the Protoss army evaporates, and from there it's just about remaxing on Zerglings, making sure you spend your gas as well, because a lot of the time you will still be using 6 gases, maybe 4, 5, 6 gases, and it's better not to float them. It's better to either take workers off of gas, but then you need to take more bases. But the most important thing is just to spend all of your resources, kind of like a Protoss would warp in High Templar to dump their gas, and truly just amass the strongest army possible. So I go in here with my Mutas towards the end, Sona at the High Templar, and then it's just GG. Zerg simply has too much stuff, and this is what I would expect a normal game on Apotheosis to look like.
Just rolling over them, get that economy advantage, and then just kind of hit with your pretty precise attacks over and over again. So let's go back to those earlier stages, and I really do think the devilry's in the details. So first of all, you're scouting in that early stage. Now, right from the beginning, just to kind of rehash as well, especially for the Protoss Zerg players out there who are wondering just how you can build 70 drones, go melee before going for a Roach Warren or a Baneling Nest. All of these things to a player who's maybe not, quite up at that Masters GM level seems very risky, but as you were mentioning before, you scouted a lot, right? And specifically seeing an Oracle opening, that already tells you that you can't get hit by that really fast, like 4-minute 30 sort of right around now adept attack, right?
Yeah, a lot of it is about counting gas and seeing what type of steps the Protoss player is climbing up. Because I was able to see that there was a mothership core, and that's 100 gas invested, which usually delays the tech a little bit. And then if you see a Stargate also, it means that there definitely is no sort of Twilight Council. And when you see a mothership core plus Stargate combination, you know that the Twilight Council and the Adepts are such a far... it's really far away, so because of that, you can very easily just go for +1 melee and drone up a lot as well. Maybe even take a quick 4th base. That's also a possibility. You know that you're safe for a long time.
That's really cool. I mean, that's such a specialized adjustment as well. It's like, you're never going to do this if you don't know what's going on. You're never just going to go melee and have your Roach Warren and Baneling that's finishing at, 5 minutes 40. If an adept attack were to hit, a minute ago, you'd just be screwed, right? But just constantly poking around with those Zerglings, as you said, and then, you poked in on that natural wall. You saw the 3 sentries by running a Zergling in, and that told you even more about where the gas was going. And sentries are a very defensive unit, right? It's going to take them forever to walk across the map. When they do, they don't really have any aggressive power, right? It's adepts that are really the one thing you'd be worried about. And I assume you can kind of not be worried about like DTs or Archon drops, because no one really does that often Oracle opening, and you've already got Spore Crawlers up anyway, so it's just something which you don't even need to think about.
Yeah, so when you scout a Stargate opening like this, it's it's so easy for the Zerg to just make a lot of drones, but you have to be able to stay on top of some weird things as well, I guess. Maybe he would go for some sort of move out with the sentries and make mass blink stalker or something, but it would just hit so late on a map like Apotheosis. And if you do keep Zerglings out to see if there's any sort of movement with, say, mass adept and mass gateway or something, then you usually should be fine and able to respond, because it takes so long time to actually move across a map as big as this.
Yeah.
And nowadays the maps are a little bit smaller, but the concept is usually still the same. If you open up Mothership Core into Oracle and add a Void Ray also, then it's going to take a while before you get hit by anything dangerous.
So a couple of questions from Reddit regarding this game. I've just got it locked on your camera for the moment. Was there a specific response you were trying to elicit from stats with the Mutalisks? Okay, we already talked about that. Sorry. You already mentioned that.
Yeah, it's not a response exactly. It's a response to seeing no Phoenix, but it's more of a part of the standard development against the Prism, and in order to harass and maybe force out Phoenix, or just to be annoying and useful.
And what about with that Warp Prism when it came in? So this was a question from jcrab08. He says, the Adept Zealot Warp Prism harass when it came in, accompanied by 2 hallucinated Phoenix, felt like a really weird choice from stats. He says, especially when he flew it directly across, he had plenty of chances to see it before it got to you. It looked like he just gave up on trying to do pressure after he saw you were ready and just kind of went home. Do you think that was a mistake on his part and he should have kept harassing? Was this some sort of mind game? This move just looked really weird, basically. So just, I think he's basically asking for some analysis on that Warp Prism harass. Do you think he should have hung around and done more with it? Was this just a weird choice going for Warp Prism harass at this time?
It's one of those things you never know. I think it's better to do it than not to do it. But if you scout that the Zerg is so well prepared, then it's just going to look weird by coincidence. If the Zerg was doing something else, then maybe it would look a little bit better, but I think it's not a bad move for sure. Warp Prism can cause a lot of trouble if the Zerg is not prepared, but in this case I was just too prepared, so nothing really happened. Going back is a bit weird though, but if Protoss sticks around for too long, then the Warp Prism will be caught by the Mutas. So I suppose Protoss shouldn't really go back unless they actually scout the Spire, and I don't remember if that was around the time when the Spire was complete.
He actually scouted with the Hallucinated Phoenix and he saw the Spire just finish, so that Warp Prism going home does make perfect sense.
Yeah, that makes sense then.
I think we've got to remember that Stats here wasn't necessarily playing like, oh, I'm going to try and kill you with this Warp Prism. He was just trying to create space for himself, right? He was going for
It's a little bit of a scouting tool for sure.
Yeah.
The thing is, if the hallucinated Phoenix somehow don't see exactly what you want to see, then the Warp Prism can be a bit more. It can go places where the Phoenixes didn't, and it can stay there for a little bit longer. Like say if there was no Spire, then maybe a Hive or something, then you can use the Warp Prism to warp in some Adepts or go somewhere else, use some Shades, for example. I don't know. It just stays there, and it has a little bit more scouting capability if the Phoenixes are shut down by Queens or Spores or whatever.
And it really gave you absolute map control here with those mutas. Did very nicely. Tampax Lollipop, what a great Reddit ID, says, have mutas become standard in your play? Basically, just to summarize his question, he said, did you want to force out this Stalker-heavy Blinkfit-based composition? Is this something you're happy to play against? Is that why you go mutas? Or do you just always go mutas to shut down the Warp Prism? So basically, do you want to shut down the Warp Prism with the mutas? Do you ever skip them? Part 1. And part 2, do you like playing against this Blink style? Do you like forcing it out?
After I played at Blizzcon, I had a little bit of mixed feelings about it, but I think playing against Blink Stalkers is not really that scary. The responses to mutas are either Blink Stalkers or Phoenix. Those are the 2 most common ones. You also have some more weird stuff like Archons, for example, but the idea of the mutas is just to be annoying and force out a composition that the Protoss that's usually not that useful going towards the later stages of the game, and I think when the Zerglings have +2, then Stalkers are not really that great, especially if there also are Ravagers in play that can deflect force fields. So if I see a Protoss making a bunch of Stalkers, that's usually not a big problem to begin with, assuming that my economy has been great. If my economy is hindered, then Blink Stalkers can be a problem. But in the situation that I was in, simply making more Stalkers is a bad idea, because eventually the Protoss runs out of surface area for the ground army, and even if you split the Stalkers up very well, they still take damage from speedlings, so I feel like the Stalker doesn't really work that well against Ling Baneling with +2 and Baneling speed.
Yeah,
so,
like
so
that
I'm pretty happy if I can force it out with mutas. Like it's definitely not bad. I think Storm is probably the scariest thing, or either that or Mass Phoenix. But Ling Baneling is still very versatile, and it's very tough for Protoss to hold.
a lot of Protoss players started doing this style later on. I guess it's because the Stalk is such a versatile unit, and when you get +2 on it, it does 3-shot rather than 4-shotting Zerglings, which is nice, but when you get to these huge engagements, the Protoss really isn't relying on his Stalkers shooting down the Zerglings, right? It's all about the Storm and the Archons, so I think this is why, like, I was thinking of asking you about maybe getting +1 Carapace on the Lings to counteract the +2, but realistically that just slows down, you know, your attack and your army value, right? So it's probably more important for you to keep trading on your opponent, stopping him getting up enough Storm and Archons, because getting a Carapace upgrade, it might help the Zerglings survive the Stalkers more, but it's not really going to do anything against the real hard counter to them, right? Which is masses of Storms and Archons.
Yeah, and it's also a little bit about staying safe and getting the technology that you need at the earlier stages of the game, because if you get the Carapace upgrade very early, say that you go 2-chamber for example, then you're taking away a little bit of resources in a point in the game where it's actually a little bit dangerous. Sometimes you might lose to being attacked, for example. And you want to be a little bit careful with the standard development of your build. Like, you don't want to take too many chances. And if you make a second chamber, then it's very easy to be a little bit at risk to all-ins, for example. It's an investment that kicks in very late, and it's not that powerful of an investment either. Or when you get it, it's not that amazing. It doesn't do that much for you. So it's better to get the Spire, for example, which already is a little bit expensive. It's better to get the Baneling speed. It's maybe better to make some extra Ravagers or something. It's just sinking the money into an extra Evo chamber, and the upgrade can be a little bit dangerous at times. Even if you have the opportunity to cancel, it's still, I got mixed feelings about it. Some people do it, but I choose not to, because whatever the Zerglings are gonna lose to, you actually want to blow up with Banelings instead. So if you skip the Carapace upgrade, you can afford maybe, what is it, 6 more Banelings? So I'd rather get 6 more Banelings than a Carapace upgrade.
This sort of explanation is why me and I think everyone who plays Zerg loves to watch your stream, and a lot of non-Zerg players as well, is because you've still got that. I always think back to 2012 Snute, streaming all day, every day. Were you like playing on like Gamers League back then or something like that, I think?
Yeah.
And like, you know, you're just this guy who came from the StarCraft community as well, before you started winning events and becoming this, you know, guy who's insanely well known. And it's really nice to hear you just kind of break things down to that level where you point out, well, you know, upgrades are this slow investment, and, you know, it's not always going to kick in to help keep you safe, so you like to prioritize everything. And I just love these explanations you give, man. Thank you so much for being so eloquent. A very small question from Casualty Gaming. He says, I'll just try anyway. Pig, if mutas are to shut down the Warp Prism, why not go Corruptors to threaten a Broodlord transition?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. The Warp Prism can fly away from the Corruptors too easily, I find. Corruptors are definitely nice if they're going into Phoenix, for example, but it's a bit of a different style, and I find that mutas cause a lot more trouble because they can shoot down in a way that Corruptors can't. So mutas, they create a lot more trouble earlier, and that's usually more powerful because you know how advantages snowball in StarCraft, right? So if you can hit an advantage earlier, that's usually better than going for a possible advantage later. This kind of reminds me of stock trading, you know? If you want to buy a Broodlord stock or a Muta stock, and your perspective is a little bit short, then you're not going to buy a Broodlord stock, right? You want to go for those Mutas. You want to go for something that has a very high chance of paying off earlier. So that's kind of my logic behind going for the Mutas rather than going for the Corruptors and the Broodlords, because the Corruptors, they only have a chance of picking off the War Prism, like they're so slow, and they don't cause the immediate trouble that Mutas cause. And Mutas can also snowball in their own way, so I find the Mutas to be a little bit better than the Corruptors on the large maps. And if you want to go Hive, if you want to go Broodlords, then you can do that later. But the Mutas, they simply cause a lot more trouble a lot faster, I find, and they also feel a bit more cheap. They don't cost those extra 50 minerals. So I think even if Mutas are weak to a Phoenix switch, and Corruptors wouldn't be, it's still better the way that they work, because you get that advantage a lot sooner than you would with the Broodlords.
The Warren Buffett of esports. That's
I know, right?
That's amazing. I actually love that analogy. I think it works perfectly. So yeah, that's a really good answer there. Cool. So let me see if I can find one or two more questions before we move on from this game. I'll throw that back on your camera so my observing doesn't get horrible. Snute said he had a plan for all maps. How do you go about deciding on what your plan for a series should be, and how often do you have to change your plan mid-series? So I guess a little bit about how you choose your strategies and prepare and study your opponent and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so usually I go into a map with a certain build in mind. It could be usually it's just the typical safe hatch gas pool opening, and very rarely do I actually deviate from my standard play of these plans. There's a little bit of thinking also. How do I explain this? I just think of whether I should use a drone scout or not, for example, depending a little bit on the player, what I've seen from my opponent. For example, if I know that my opponent plays Twilight Council in 90% of their games, then I might, for example, skip the Overlord speed and just go for some sort of blind roach defense or something like this. It depends a little bit on what my opponent likes to do, and so I try to shape my strategies in advance. If I know that my opponent is more of a Phoenix player, then I definitely would maybe take some extra chances to get that chamber up sooner. It's just stuff like that. Trying to make some small deviations and then sticking to the plan. And I don't know if I make too many deviations just on the fly, because it can be a very dangerous thing if you start doing that. If you go to a LAN or if you go to a tournament and you lose the first game, for example, then sometimes you can be tempted to cheese or do some weird stuff that's maybe not as practiced as the as the other things you've planned. So I just try to stick to the plan and use what I find that works in practice. And maybe sometimes prepare something special, but not that often.
Awesome. Very thorough answer. And I think, we've done a good look at this game. Excuse me. There were a few other questions which I didn't ask specifically from guys both on Reddit and here in Twitch chat, but I think we answered them through the course of the analysis. So if you're happy to, let's move on to that next game. So while we both hop out and rip headphone users. Sorry, guys.
Hang in there, Jared. Bless you, Jared.
I managed to mute the mic at least for obs, like halfway through that, so it's only you that got mega deafened.
Nah, it's fine. It's good.
Oh man, I think I got some dust up my nose or something.
I gotta find the replay. Just 1 second.
Yeah. So while we do that, that's fine. So it's going to be game number 2, same set. Sorry, game number 3. Game number 2, for anyone who didn't catch the series live, Stats went for a sneaky 2-base all-in, made it look like he was going for a 3rd base. I can't remember if he actually put a Nexus down or not, but he definitely built no probes for it. And just went and surprised Snute with a sneaky all-in attack on Frozen Temple and caught him off guard. So that one we didn't really want to talk about because I literally just analyzed the entire game. And sometimes that happens. If someone hides a sneaky build really well, they can pull that off. So instead we are going to go into game number 3.